This is one of the hardest woods on the planet. It's called catalox, or at least it's spelled catalox. I've also heard it referred to as cataloche, also referred to as Mexican royal ebony. It's not a true ebony though. It's just about as hard as regular ebony, and it's really, really hard, very difficult to work with, but incredibly beautiful. And normally when I do these bow tie inlays, I like to have matching wood, but this is going in a walnut table, and for some reason, I got the urge to do a contrasting wood. So this is going to be much darker than the walnut, and here's how I'm going to make sure that the two bow ties are absolutely identical. Just cut one big one, and then split this one down the middle. The reason I always stop just short with that bandsaw jig is if you go too far, you actually cut into the bow tie itself. So I stop just short, and then I come back with a chisel and clean it up, just keeping it nice and flat against the bow tie itself, and let the blade do the work. It's a really simple process and will save you from totally ruining your bow tie if you go too far with the bandsaw. Now, I have tried a ton of different methods for doing these inlays, and this is my personal favorite process. The first thing I do is I adhere them with a double-sided tape, and if you're curious, this is one by 3M that's their permanent double-sided tape, and don't worry, it's not that permanent, it just works a lot better than their temporary stuff. And the next thing you'll need is a good marking knife. You can use something like a box knife or an X-Acto knife. The problem with those is they're generally only good for 2 or 3 swipes on the wood before they're too dull and the blade needs to be replaced. Conversely, this is one that I offer for sale. It's made from 81 layers of Damascus steel. It's incredibly beautiful, but it's also incredibly hard. And unlike the X-Acto knife, this is one you could hand down to your grandchildren. It will definitely outlast you. They do sell out pretty quick when I get them in stock. They are in stock right now on Blacktail Studio, so you can check that out if you want some more information on those Damascus marking knives. This next part was pretty tricky because these were probably the most narrow bow ties I've ever made, and I had an 1/8 of an inch blade in my little trim rod, and you can see the game of operation I'm playing there is just trying not to go over those lines, and actually did it without going too far. And here is where that marking knife line comes into play, because to get a perfect inlay, all you have to do is rest that chisel in that line. And if you try to do this with a pencil or something, you can never get it truly where it needs to be. And you can see just how it clicks in there, and it's so satisfying when you get this just right. And it works great on a hardwood like this. And just make sure your chisels are really sharp. Make sure all your tools are really sharp. It's just a good lesson to have. It's really, really important, and really kind of underrated how important good, sharp tools are. In the past, I've tried doing these bow tie inlays with epoxy, and I found that epoxy leaves a really dark line around the perimeter of whatever inlay you're doing, so I do not recommend using epoxy. This is Titebond 3. It's supposed to be a little bit better with these really dense woods. I can't say whether that's true or not, but this is Titebond 3 versus something like Titebond 1, and all you really need to know is this is wood glue, just regular old yellow wood glue. It's just a little bit fancier and supposed to do a little bit better with these really dense hardwoods. After that glue dries, if you did a good job, you should have it pretty much made. If there are some little pits or some little gaps, you can touch those up using a little bit of CA glue and wood dust. This one went in really, really nicely though. It just took a little bit of finish here, and here's how it looked in the end. All in all, I like the contrast, but I'd love to know what you think.